All right, it's that time of year, and by that I mean hot. Hot weather is what tomatoes like to grow. So, right now they are growing like crazy, which means it's time to start pruning them. Um, Pruning them doesn't take away from your fruit, it focuses the plant's attention on the fruit. So, you're actually going to get more tomatoes by pruning your plant. One of the first things to determine when you start trimming your tomato plant or pruning your tomato plant is what type are you growing? There are two varieties, indeterminate and determinate. So indeterminate tomatoes, they grow all season long. They'll produce all season long. You'll get lots of fruit from them. They also grow the highest. They need tomato cages or trellises to get tied to support them, and they need a lot of pruning to make sure that that attention isn't just growing more and more leaves but actually growing some fruit for you to eat. Whereas determinate tomatoes are more bush type, they'll grow a certain height, they'll produce one very large crop and be done for the season. They're best for canning or making sauces or something like that, or compact spaces. If you're growing them on a patio and you can't keep going higher and higher, they're a good type of tomato to grow there as well. So when we get to trimming a tomato plant, and here's kind of what one will look like, an indeterminate one will look like, is you've got it growing from the bottom. You've got flowering clusters coming off of here, and then you've got these little suckers here that you need to remove. That's where a whole other plant will almost grow. And if you don't take those off, it takes the energy away from that fruiting flower and the tomatoes that it's going to develop there. So you trace up the vine from the main stem. You're going to get to this junction here where a main leaf branch branches off of the plant stem. Another little leaf will grow there, and that sucker is what you need to pinch off. When they're really small, you can do it with your fingernail. As they get bigger, you should use pruning shears to help cut it off so you don't damage the plant, leave a little bit and rip down and injure the whole entire stalk. So why do we prune? We prune because otherwise you get a giant overgrown mess like this that now has the flowers on the inside shaded, so they're not even going to get pollinated. You're going to have mold and mildew issues because there's not enough ventilation. So pruning it makes it take all of that energy from leafy growth and put some of the energy into fruit growth. So it's also healthy for the plant. You know, you're not going to have powdery mildew, leaf spot disease, blight as prevalent when the air is moving through there. Again, the sunlight helps with photosynthesis and ripening of the fruit as well. So that's all important for making your tomato plant as productive as possible. So how do you prune? So the best place to start is shortly after you transplant it, maybe like 3 to 4 weeks after transplanting, once it's about a little over a foot and a half tall. And you're going to take those bottom leaves off first, the ones that'll develop and just grow into the soil. You're going to take those off so that way they don't get infected. That's where mold pathogens will start to breed, is that interspace between the dirt and the leaf. It's going to be moist and humid in there, so just trim those leaves off. And then we talked about trimming off the suckers as you go up the plant. So you just snip those off right there where it's coming off of the main branch. The next step is to train the main stem to a trellis or to put a tomato cage around it to give the plant some support. Outside of that, just repeat this process every couple of weeks to make sure that you're redirecting the energy of the plant to producing your fruit instead of just growing more and more greens on the top. There are a few times that we don't want to cut. So if the plant looks stressed out, don't prune. If you just transplanted it, don't prune. Let the plant recover before you prune. Now that tomato up earlier that was really overgrown, we're only going to want to take a third of that plant off at once, because otherwise you're going to stress the plant out too much. It needs those leaves now to support it, so it needs that photosynthesis. You don't want to trim too heavily on determinate tomatoes. That's not good. The last thing is you really don't want to trim when it's wet out. That can lead to contamination. It can make funguses grow where the inner and bacteria grow, where you made that cut, it takes the plant longer to heal. So just make sure you prune when the leaves are dry. That's the best time to do it. The other thing is you really don't want to trim from the top of the plant. It's better to trim the lower branches. When you trim from the top, you're taking some of the leaf that could be shading fruit, and that'll lead the fruit to get sun scald. That's it.